49ers first, and I just get a yucky feeling right now when I'm listening to 49er veterans talk.
Kind of like when you burp and a little bit comes up. It's not like you're throwing up, but there's a little bit of that, a little bit of that acid reflux kind of vibe.
What do you make of this comment? And Nick Wagner, our buddy, I think a few people had this quote, but this is where I saw it first on Twitter, Nick Wagner, ESPN. And he says Jimmy Ward was asked if the move to nickel corner is permanent. Quote, I don't know. I'm just going to do what the coaches tell me to do. It's my last year on contract, and I'm just trying to be a team player. Oh, my gosh. How is this not getting more pub? This is someone who has been with the 49ers, this regime, from the absolute beginning. How are you going to take any piece of that quote and spin it as no big deal? And I guess that's what we can sort of play with people right now. Big deal or no big deal?
Deal but again, or no deal?
Think about if you get asked a question about anything in your professional world and your immediate response, 3 different sentences. One of them is, I don't know. Okay, that's saying nobody's communicating with me.
Right, he doesn't know.
Your next one is, I'm just going to do what the coaches tell me to do.
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
Right? Like, I don't know. I'm not the boss, so I don't have any options here. And then immediately, it's my last year on contract, and I'm just trying to be a team player. I mean, this clearly sounds like someone who feels like he's being totally dismissed. And when you add it into what George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk were saying after recent games, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going Shanahan's lost the locker room. I don't know how to define this.
That's too dramatic for me.
I just know that the 49er veterans don't sound like they feel as good as they used to feel.
They don't normally say these types of things. And again, this is not that inflammatory to me. We can read into it and see that maybe he's not thrilled with his spot. But think about it. He lost his job. He's not a starting safety anymore because of Hufanga, and Gibson's come in and he's not in the same spot that he was, in part because of injury and the rest of it. So now he's being pressed into duty in a spot where he knows is not his best spot. It's not his skill set. So he's a little bit frustrated, and I admire the honesty with which that he delivered his answer. And honestly, Mark, he didn't come out and say, this is a bunch of bull, I'm a safety, I shouldn't be playing corner, I don't know what they're trying to do to me. But he did, kind of approach that with the way he intimated that he's not happy.
I mean, listen, to me, when you ask somebody a question, and within the span of 15 words, they bring up their contract, that's a thing. That's a thing. I don't really know. And, by the way, it was thrown out on social media yesterday that this could, in a free agent year, you don't want to be put out on tape in a lesser position.
Absolutely.
This is a less expensive position. You went from one of the best free safeties in the game, and now you're going to tell everybody in a contract year you're a nickel corner?
That's a problem.
I know exactly how that gets processed by players. It's like, dude, you're costing me money. If you don't want me to be your free safety anymore, okay, but don't put me in this light because this is going to be bad for my money. If somebody
Especially if you get cooked, by the way.
Right.
If you're not, because being a nickel corner is a unique skill set. You have to have swivel ability in your hips in both directions. You have to be very versatile as an athlete, quick, the ability to cover wide receivers, tight ends. Nickel corner has become a very difficult, critical part of a defense. And if you're used to being a safety, and he hasn't played corner really regularly since 2016, now you're putting on tape bad stuff, and you're not putting safety play on tape.
I just know that what we've heard and what we've witnessed with the 49er locker room, the entire Kyle Shanahan era, and some people don't love this because they're like, I don't care that everybody likes each other. Go win the Super Bowl. But they do go hand in hand to a certain degree. We've heard the comments like they don't allow knuckleheads in this locker room. This group likes playing for each other. They think Kyle Shanahan is the man. Like they play for him. There has been success, not the ultimate success, but there's been success. Of your list of worries with 49er football, never was one of them the locker room. Ever. in this era. And now there's that combined with, let us remind you now, okay, 2 weeks ago, George Kittle in Atlanta.
We're the San Francisco 49ers. We have a standard that we play at. I mean, we play at a very high level, a lot of energy, 100% effort on every single play. And, I haven't watched the tape yet, but I don't know if we gave that today, at every single position. And, we had a lot of young guys play. We had some, like you said, we're missing a lot of guys. And we just got to make sure that we're playing at that level every single snap, or otherwise that's going to happen, especially when you are down guys. You can look at it as, we're down how many ever 7, 8 starters, or you can look at it as that's a lot of young guys with an opportunity to go out there and make big plays and get their names known. So we've dealt with it before. It's not easy, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse. We have a very talented team. Our offense still has a lot of talented guys on it that can get a lot of yak with the football, and we got, I think, one of the best linebackers in football, Fred Warner, and our safeties are playing pretty well too. So and the D line's still good. So I just think we should have played better.
At the time, I took that as George is taking an opportunity to speak to the young guys who he did not feel were up to the level that it's going to take to succeed in the NFL. So it was like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
He's calling out effort, but I sort of took that as a veteran pointing at the young guys, right?
After the Atlanta game where they didn't play great across the board, Kittle had a nice game, his first really good game, but across the board, the team got pushed around. They got pushed in, and you got beat up by a lesser team in a second game of a 2-game road trip. So I like a veteran calling out his teammates in that spot. But in light of other comments, it's starting to feel a little bit differently now 2 weeks later.
Other comments, you say?
We have plenty of guys that make plays. Ayuk, Debo, myself, Christian, Jeff Wilson. We have a lot of guys out there. Juwan. We have plenty of guys that can make plays, and unfortunately today, I think it really showed that we just couldn't get the ball into those guys' hands.
Okay, we couldn't get the ball into the playmakers' hands. Brandon Ayuk was right across the room.
I just feel like we got too many people that can change the game to score 23 points. Like, people can ask about the defense, but at the end of the day, we got to score more points than the other team, so that's how I feel.
I'm not trying to make the point that anybody doesn't like Kyle Shanahan. I actually don't think that's the case. I don't think he's lost the locker room. I don't think that they're splintered. I don't think this, that, or the other. I think you're hearing veteran players have an unprecedented level of frustration in this era. That's what I think. And I do tie it on some level to the quarterback position in 2 ways. One way is what I just said on the changeover a short time ago, which is that with Jimmy Garoppolo being healthy, this is the furthest the 49ers have felt from success in the last 4 years. 2019, made it to the Super Bowl. 2020, he's hurt. 2021, made it to the NFC title game. 2022, yep, it was Trey. We get the story, but here he is, and he's healthy. And they're losing. They have a losing record. They have lost to the Bears. They have lost to the Broncos. These are the worst teams in football. They have lost to the Atlanta Falcons by double digits. So they feel further away from success than they have in 4 years with Jimmy Garoppolo healthy. And I also tie it even back to the beginning, and Mike Silver will be perfect on this in 15 minutes because it was his story that sort of broke it. I wonder if some veterans came into this year with questions about Kyle Shanahan they had never had before because of the way the quarterback position was being handled.
And now the way it's been handled subsequently is you've got the lesser guy in some people's minds in Jimmy Garoppolo, and in other people's minds, and Mike Silver had this in the piece, and unnamed 49er players, or Kyle Juszczyk was quoted saying, Jimmy gives us a better chance to win. Well, it turns out maybe he doesn't because you haven't necessarily won with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I wonder how much of a divide there is in the locker room based on the quarterback position alone. But what we're finding now, Mark, is as time has gone on in this season, you lost to the Bears, and you shouldn't have. You lost to Denver 11-10, and I have to point that out every time because nobody loses 11-10 unless you're in Major League Baseball in a game in July.
You were so off before that game when you said they were going to lose 12-11.
Yeah, I don't regret it. I'm kicking myself because I thought it'd be 3 field goals, a touchdown, and a field goal on the other side. I didn't account for the safety, and that's on me, Mark. I need to be better.
It was a bad prediction. Anyway, go ahead.
think we always talk about the ultimate deodorant in sports is winning. If you go to LA to SoFi and you beat the Rams, you go into the bye, and all of this stuff, it washes gently away down the storm drain. But if you go to LA and you lose a game 15-14, or another kind of ugly game. The defense shows up, but the offense doesn't do it. We might see more rumblings into the bye.
Big deal or no big deal? 888-957-9570. I'm Brandon Ayuk, okay? Let's try to get into that.
Boy, can you run a route.
I tell you what, I am talented. All right, I'm Brandon Ayuk. Let's think about the career so far, okay? You get drafted, and you're a rookie, and you come out and you pop. Nothing crazy, but like, 49ers found something there. He looks like a good player. All right, cool. Following year, start the year in the doghouse. Okay, you come back, you pat yourself on the back, you're not hitting the work level. Kyle comes down on you hard, takes all the way to the second half of the season until you can sort of look right. But even then, it's sort of like, fits and starts, and Deebo Samuel right and Deebo Samuel left and Deebo a big contract is kind of the way the rest of that year plays out. Now you come back and you're told, okay, dude, year 3, it is time to shine. Oh, but we're going to give you a rookie quarterback. And we're not really going to throw the ball all that much because we don't really trust this first-year starter to be able to really push the ball down the field. Then he gets hurt, and now you're right back to Jimmy. And as Jimmy ramps up, by the way, Brandon has had his stuff the last 2 weeks. He's getting his targets, he's getting his catches, but he's clearly mentally still not feeling good. You know, remember the one where he broke out to the sideline wide open for a touchdown? Jimmy didn't even see him. And so this has been his experience. And it feels to me he's got to be someone who's going, dude, do you realize as I approach the end of my rookie contract, do you realize what I would be up for if I were playing for the Chiefs, if I were playing for a team that didn't approach its offense this way? That's the kind of thing. It's not I've lost the locker room. It sounds to me like guys are starting to think, here's Jimmy Ward, my contract. Brandon Ayuk, we're not getting people the ball. It sounds to me like
George Kittle, guys aren't playing hard.
We're going to individual places, which is obviously the opposite of a team.
Right, and this is what I was talking about in the changeover in terms of the natural evolution of non-winning, non-championship winning situations. And we go back to the Giants, and I think about Dusty Baker, 93 to 2002, the last non-championship tenure of some length for a team in the Bay Area. And it was Dusty Baker, who, by the way, is a fantastic manager. He might win a World Series this year.
Hope so.
What do we know about 2002? He gives the ball to Russ Ortiz when he takes him out. You were there. Giants lose Game 6. Rally Monkey. Angels win. That's it for Dusty. He's gone.
Yep.
Kyle Shanahan now, longest tenure as a 49er coach since George Seifert. He will match Mariucci after this year with 6 years. Next year when Kyle's back, he will surpass that. And what do we know about this tenure? They haven't won a championship. Mariucci didn't win a championship. And by the way, Steve had more regular season success than Kyle's had. But you get to a certain point in time where if you don't have that success, it's natural for things to slowly break apart. I'm not saying he's lost a locker room, but we are seeing things now that we haven't seen before.
It's time to roll. It's time to roll. Like you can't lose 3 in a row. And then you got to sit there with it for the bye. And I know there's injuries, some of them big. Deebo might not play. I get it, but that's all that this says to me. Is if you go back to when they were in a very similar situation last year, it felt like, okay, we are at a crossroads. And so we're going to go a different direction if this doesn't turn right now. And they were going to bench Jimmy Garoppolo, but then it went a different way.
Right.
And they rallied. This isn't that level quite yet, but it is similar in that because the difference here is that there's no quarterback to bench. They're not going to Brock Purdy. But the future of a lot of different pieces of this puzzle, I think, are sitting on the next 2 to 3 weeks of 49er football. Because also, in addition to just the obvious stuff where people think about the coach and, you know, like they just brought in Christian McCaffrey and there's been no discussion of him restructuring a deal. And if he doesn't restructure a deal over the next year and a half, there are names on this team that you think are just a part of this team that aren't going to be a part of this team. I'm telling you that right now. If McCaffrey doesn't redo his deal, start reasoning and reckoning with the idea that Brandon Ayuk will not be back, or that Deebo Samuel in 2 years would be traded, or something. Something like that is going to have to give. And so that, to me, all of this leads to maybe a little bit more. I knew there was urgency. There's always urgency in the NFL, but man, this feels like we're at a different kind of crossroads at the same point of the year this year as it was last year. They have got to get this thing going right now, or else decisions that they don't want to make are going to start getting made.
Without a doubt. And I think Brandon Ayuk is the most fascinating one for me, because you draft him, and when you draft a player that high, a wide receiver, you want him to get to his second contract. But just look at his year this year. First 5 games, 17 catches. Last 2 games, 15 catches. So maybe he's trending in the right way. And with Deebo out, assuming that Deebo doesn't play, and if I'm the 49ers and I look at the situation, Deebo with the hampered leg, I sit him out knowing that you got the bye on the backside, because if you play him and he tweaks it more, he might be out 4 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
And also, you brought in Christian McCaffrey, so if you lose Deebo, but you add in a full game McCaffrey, you're not missing anything to me in terms of what that means offensively.
You have enough to win this game. Without Deebo.
With Christian McCaffrey.
You have enough to win this game.
Absolutely.
You have
and even though you don't have Juszczyk, I think Kyle Shanahan can be creative with using Kittle as a fullback at times, using Warner as a fullback at times. You're going to see split backs with Jeff Wilson Jr. and McCaffrey in situations where you don't have a fullback, but you do have 2 running backs in the backfield. This is up to Kyle Shanahan to scheme it up without Deebo maybe, and knowing you're going to be without Juszczyk.
If Trent Williams is playing like Trent Williams, they have all they need to block the Rams and win the football game. That's the only thing they need to do. I don't care who the skill position guys are. If you give Jimmy time, this Rams defense is not going to win that football game. And the 49er defense, as we know, against the Rams has what they need to beat them. We'll see about their health. Jonathan in San Francisco here on Willard and Dibs. Mike Silver is coming up in about 8 minutes. Hey, Jonathan, what are you doing?
I'm just enjoying this lovely day. It's sunny right now, and it's just bringing warmth to my day. I just want to say, guys, I don't think they're necessarily, the 49ers. They're beginning to speak out like that. I don't like it, pointing fingers. Usually leads to no good. But I don't think they're pointing their finger or calling out Kyle or their teammates. I think it might be, this is just me, okay? It might be the position coaches. Because, Kyle, over the years, because they were so good, and the coaching staff, 2-3 years ago, they had all these, young geniuses, and they all left, and it took a lot with that leaving. They were gone, and also they probably took a couple of other guys below them. So now you got Mike McDaniels leaving, and who they replace him with? Anthony Lynn. And Anthony Lynn got fired from his last gig because he wasn't any good. So I don't know, man. That signing right now is questionable.
Yeah, Jonathan, actually, Anthony Lynn has been a very successful position coach in his history. Thanks, Jonathan. Always good to hear from you. The other side to this, I know when people point to Mike McDaniel, it looks fun in Miami. All that's great. Kyle Shanahan now, who supposedly taught Mike McDaniel all the plays, doesn't know how to call the plays. It's not the plays. It's not the plays. Okay?
It's the players. And that's where it's gotten interesting, because Kyle Shanahan has kind of said it's the players, and yet now the players are slightly clapping back. So at some point, there's got to be accountability from the coaching staff to say, no, it's not the players, it's me.
That's the slippery slope. I watched Mike McCoy in San Diego with the Chargers years ago essentially get fired because after every game, he's like, well, I did everything I was supposed to do, and the players messed it up. I mean, it was way worse than how it is now, but players do not take well to that. I can promise you.